This is the Night Shift Podcast, powered by Black and Gold Banneret, your home for news and analysis from all UCF Knights sports. The Night Shift starts now. Welcome to Night Shift. Jeff Sharon with you here. We've got Eric Lopez. We've got the student of the game, Kyle Nash. We've got Bryson Turner in the house. As we are, football season is underway, kids. Here we go. We got one game down in the books. UCF is 1-0 on the season. Beats the hell out of being 0-1 for sure. I don't care who the opponent is. We're going to talk about UCF's debut against New Hampshire in a little bit and preview their next game against Sam Houston. No longer FCS Sam Houston, by the way. They're in Conference USA now. Shout out to Conference USA. We've also got our first full weekend of volleyball in the books and two huge games in UCF soccer to talk about. But yeah, I mean, it was fun to be back in the saddle again on Thursday night. And you know what? It was a nice weekend of college football. And it's actually, as we record this, it's still going because Eric Lopez's Florida State Seminoles are getting rocked right now.
I'm really getting all right. I am not. Again, this is really hilarious to me. I like Florida State. It's cool. I am not a diehard fan. I am a Miami Dolphin diehard fan. The Noles can go 0-12. I would be fine with it as long as the Dolphins do well. That's for the record. I'm actually watching Tommy Paul and Yannick Sinner in the U.S. Open round of 16. The best sporting event, underrated sporting event going on right now.
See, I knew we had to get him into the tennis at some point. So, all right.
Plus, CM Punk just got destroyed on Raw. Joe Tessitore, one of the great voices of college football, now the new voice of Raw. Because Joe Tessitore realizes that college football as a product is garbage, so I need to go and watch a good product for a change.
Right. Well,
now I'm ready.
Send your complaints to Eric Lopez Elo on Twitter. I am not on Twitter. I'm on Threads at Jeff Sharon. Bryson's at It's Bryson Turner.
Look at the score margins across the country, y'all. Nothing like a bunch of 50-0 games. Woo!
I actually have data. Believe it or not, Eric, I have some data on that, which I'll get to a little bit later. But follow us, of course, at blackandgoldbanneret.com, where you can get all the latest UCF news on all sports as well, including everything that happened over the weekend. So let's talk about the big event, which was UCF's 57-3 victory over New Hampshire. If you missed it in your feed, we put Night Shift live immediately after the game up on your podcast feed. We promise to have that up there after every UCF game. Whenever we have a live show, we'll put it in your podcast feed as well. It's also on our YouTube channel. Now, one thing I did want to, let's debrief off of this before we talk about Sam Houston. Obviously, the big story coming out of that game, Kyle Nash, I'll start with you, is the worry over KJ Jefferson, who obviously did not have the greatest of debuts. Managed to score himself a couple of touchdown passes in the second half, but I don't think anyone, including KJ, would look at the overall picture and say, wow, that was a really bang-up performance, exactly what I was anticipating. The official numbers on KJ, I'm trying to pull up the stats here.
That would be 7 of 14, Jeff, for 160. Is it 4 yards? 4 yards. Yes.
164 yards. Two touchdowns, 1 interception. Also fumbled the ball once. Yeah, like we said, not great. And he was also sacked one time. But, he did even despite all that, you did what you were supposed to do against New Hampshire. Now, here's my question. Let's is it real panic, or is it just he's just rusty? Don't worry about it. He's going to be fine. We got Sam Houston this week. How close are we to hitting the panic button here?
I don't know if you saw Night Shift Live yourself, Jeff, or at least the beginning of the show where Eric absolutely lost his mind in panic.
Oh, no, of course I saw that.
Well, in fairness, I have a column I wrote a column on him that was suggests he could lead UCF to being a Big 12 contender. So, yeah, I'm a little concerned, and trust me.
I see. Eric is concerned not because of KJ Jefferson's impact on the team, but because he could be wrong.
Listen, if you want to see how wrong Elo might be, you could always go to blackandgoldbanneret.com.
Are you having buyer's remorse, Eric?
No, the people that chipped in on the NIL probably are, though. As I said, if the indications were in the chat room, that was the case, and you know,
Right,
welcome to New College.
Well, okay.
Set Bryson Turner in the building here. Look at this guy. Ed McMahon ain't got jack on Bryson Turner.
Finances
knows who Ed McMahon is. Anyway,
finances aside, Kyle Nash. I'm talking from a straight football perspective. Was it just a bad night, shake it off, or is there some real lingering concern here based on what you saw?
So for those that are worried, I'm not mad that you're worried. Let me lead with that. When anybody comes out 1 for 6 with an 8-yard pass on a check down to a running back, I get it. When you finish 7 for 14, something changed and you got a little bit better. I'll lead with this. That flurry of struggled passes, it looked like he was straight arming his throws to me. Granted, I'm not JT O'Sullivan.
What do you mean by? Yeah, I was going to say, what do you mean by straight arming?
Right. So when he's delivering and you hesitate, and I mean, we don't have a video component, so I'm going to move my arm just so I know what I'm talking about as I say it, not for any other reason, but when you're delivering and you hesitate, it naturally causes your arm to kind of stiffen and straighten out as you go through your throwing motion, right? When people tell quarterbacks to step through their throws, that lofty, rainbow effect that you saw in particular on the Miles Montgomery touchdown, which, listen, I know it turned into a touchdown, but just so somebody doesn't call me a powder puff, KJ Jefferson apologist, what have you, that was a garbage throw that just happened to go the right way. Okay. Let me be clear about that. But a lot of the throws, it looked like he was hesitating on basically everything. He delivered for the first 6 passes.
I have to agree. He looked like he was very unsure with, as he's like, is this the right place to go? And you would see that hitch before he let it go. And
that's exactly that. I call that straight arming. There's probably a better term for it out there somewhere, but listen, I live in the trenches, the pretty boy behind me, not that that's KJ necessarily, but the pretty boy behind me is not typically my problem, nor is his technique. That being said, there was the throw in a high pressure moment, 2-minute drill to Kobe Hudson that set up the score at the end of the half to extend it to 22-3 at halftime. That was what gave me, I don't want to call it hope, but what kind of confirmed my theory of kind of straight arming it. Listen, Elo makes the point about the money and the NIL and that big a deal. And listen, this is the first time on that campus that somebody got paid 6 digits that we're aware of on that field. So relatively, air quotes, publicly, right? And I think that's an element. Listen, KJ Jefferson, if you listen to our selection from the Black and Gold Banner at YouTube channel for Football Media Day for 2024, you would know for a fact that KJ Jefferson is one of the only college football players on earth to be relatively content with his No, he wasn't just content. He was surprised that they made it that good. And I think dudes that are that humble, that kind of stuff gets in their head. Think Steve McNair, right? Steve McNair stories of running into a guy who says, "Hey, I lost $100 on you," and dude digs in his pocket and hands it to him. It's that kind of vibe. Yes, that's specific to you, Jeff Sharon. I know it's bad radio form, air quotes, to use inside references like that, but I know you understand. And I guess I'm calling Steve McNair old school. Now I'm even more self-conscious. But the punchline being, that's the kind of vibe I'm getting here from that first quarter, first half. And give more credit to the kid in this particular front. He faced the media down after the game. I was sure we weren't going to get KJ Jefferson, but nonetheless, he came out, he faced the scrutiny, answered all the questions, and frankly, maybe there is something to him kind of patching it up and getting things all better, or at least capable by the time they go to TCU. Guys, I have to tell you this. The reason why this offense is still going to be good, if KJ Jefferson improves or not, is they're not going to ask KJ Jefferson to do a whole butt ton. I don't give a damn if he was throwing spirals all night against New Hampshire. He was never going to be sent out there with the intent of throwing more than 20 passes in the game. Why the hell would you with that running back core? I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, 454 rushing yards between 4 guys, that will do it. Eric, have you are you still gnashing your teeth at the moment, or what?
No, look, there is legitimate concern. He had a couple of games like this last year at Arkansas. So the question is this kind of now, has he developed some bad habits that he's trying to get out of? Now, this is a guy that's thrown 8,000 yards in his career in the SEC. So I don't anticipate this being a weekly thing, but we did see a little bit of this at times last year. So while I don't expect that, for example, I think he'll play better this week against Sam Houston.
Right.
I think there is a legitimate question of what's going to happen against TCU. What's going to happen in the Big 12? Can he match up against some of these quarterbacks? And this is where I disagree, Kyle. They're not going to run for 400 yards against everybody in their schedule. They're going to eventually no, I don't think so. I mean, as bad as the Big 12 is, they're going to have to make some plays throwing the football.
Sure.
In this league that has good quarterbacks. And I think because teams are what's going to happen when they actually face teams who actually have athletes and not New Hampshire who, I think you could find a middle school football team somewhere. Maybe, those NFL like kids, those 8, 12-year-old and unders flag champion. Those teams had more athletes than New Hampshire did. So quite frankly, I mean, people wonder why there's too many football programs. Start in New Hampshire, for Christ's sake. Nonetheless, they're going to face somebody with athletes. Now, it won't be this week either because Sam Houston has none of those either. But eventually.
Well, they're better than New Hampshire.
That's saying a lot. Eventually, they will face
the bar is low. I get it.
And I think what teams are going to do is you're going to stack the box and say, I dare you to beat us with the pass. And KJ's got to make some throws to open up the running game at that point.
Right.
Go ahead, Kyle.
You don't have to run for 454 yards to win a football game. The 454 yards was to ensure you had a 54-point margin of victory. I literally heard somebody in the press box say, well, hey, this was the most underwhelming 57-3 victory I've ever seen for a team. What are we doing here? But that all being said.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, that is true.
That was Trace, wasn't it?
It was not Trace, actually.
But look, this is Kyle. You and I, we talked about this on the Night Shift live show. This is the new standards now with NIL. If you donate to get certain athletes on the team, they expect production. It's not just about wins or losses, but production. And at that position, at quarterback, scrutiny is going to be higher than ever. Look, Florida State, we're recording this as we're watching Florida State. FSU is going through this way worse situation because their quarterback is definitely cannot throw a pass outside of 5 yards. And everybody at FSU is like, why did we spend money to get this guy? Why don't we just bring one of our own kids if we're going to do that? And that's where KJ, he was brought here to help them contend for the Big 12 title. He wasn't here he wasn't brought in to hand off. And now the good news is, we'll find out starting against TCU is when we'll start getting some answers there.
He may not have been brought in to hand off per se, but let's be clear. You don't have to run the ball for 450 yards to win every game. Let me be clear about that. To your point, I agree. At some point, he's going to have to connect and deliver on passes down the field. The style of which we saw precisely when he hit Kobe Hudson down the field. Those are the kind of openings, and all you got to do is hit one of those, and immediately the defense is going to get more honest, and that's when RJ Harvey and company go to work. And I have to say in company because all 4 of the damn running backs that came in the game got a freaking touchdown. Okay,
right. So I want to go back to that real quick because RJ Harvey, obviously the star of the day, 11 carries, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns. Penny Boone looked really good, as advertised. 81 yards on 7 carries and a touchdown. I really liked Miles Montgomery, man. He brings a much different, nice change of pace in there. He had 79 on 8 and a score. Johnny Richardson's back. I will say that the one take that I did hear, Kyle, I know you keep going back to the Kobe Hudson play. The one take that I did hear was like, well, that was Kobe. That wasn't so much KJ. I don't agree completely. I mean, not that it was a perfect throw, but it was not a bad throw, and it was clearly the best one of the night. He put it in position for Kobe to make the play. I think that's the most important thing. Now, I mean, we're not going to have to. Fortunately, well, hopefully, if all goes well, we're not going to see situations where we're going to have to do that anytime soon. Which takes us to Sam Houston. First ever matchup for UCF and Sam. Obviously, Sam is in their second year in FBS after a long and storied tradition in FCS, formerly Division I AA, especially in recent times. Had a rough year last year. This year they are 1-0. They defeated Rice to start the season. Obviously, same as in Conference USA. They beat Rice at Rice 34-14. Defensively in that game, they were pretty good. They gave up 274 yards and got 407 of their own. And they held Rice to 47 yards. Now, this is Rice. I get it. But 47 rushing yards on 18 carries. 2.6 per rush. And meanwhile, Sam Houston themselves ran the ball 46 times for 178. They didn't really throw the ball overly great, but when they did, it was pretty pretty decent. 16-27, 229. This is the way I kind of view this one, Kyle, is if New Hampshire was World 1-1. This is World 1-2. It still should be. It's a little bit more challenging than the previous one, but World 8 is still off a little ways away now.
Right.
Still. So again, what do we got? You obviously stay healthy, and UCF did stay relatively healthy coming out of the New Hampshire game. Didn't notice anything particularly troublesome from an injury perspective, other than, of course, what we already know about John Walker. But
let's not forget Henderson as well.
Henderson too, who was I don't think he was even on the depth chart. Is that right? So
I know Walker wasn't.
Yeah. But what's the story here against Sam Houston? Because this is a situation where if you're not prepared, if you're not ready to take care of business, they will give you problems.
Well, listen, when I talked to Gus Malzahn about it here today on Monday during the coach's press conference, he basically had that same outlook. Granted, he's not using Super Mario Brothers nomenclature like you were there, Jeff, but he did acknowledge that everybody did what they were supposed to do, basically, other than the offense in that first quarter, which is basically code for KJ, right? So, by the way, Jeff, let me reiterate, just so you can hook it to your veins here on the show, 2 turnovers by the defense and a safety by special teams. Come on, man. I know that's
give me some of that.
I know that's what you're
keep talking dirty to me. I love
it. So with all that being said, yeah, he acknowledged that it was going to be a more tough challenge. And really, I think he wants that level of difficulty pushed, because what he's still trying to do is get the team to be more self-led on the field, right? This is what this portion of the year is for. He did mention, there wasn't panic on the sideline. Everybody was confident. The way he put it, nobody was sad like somebody stole their lunch when they hit that early adversity. They stayed calm and did what it was they needed to do. Now, are they treating it like a preseason game as well? I don't know. A 54-point margin of victory is kind of evidence against that. If you want to nitpick that they didn't get a sack, that's fine. I could argue they should have had a third interception on another hurry. They did hit the quarterback a lot. And listen, they gave the secondary opportunity to make turnovers, takeaways more specifically, and they did that. So I think the increase in difficulty is something that Gus Malzahn is relying on to kind of boost things a bit and see if KJ can, I don't want to call it rust, but can find his confidence. That's how I'll put it.
That quarterback, by the way, that Sam Houston got those turnovers against is one E.J. Warner that we're familiar with from Temple, who threw 12 INTs in both of his seasons at Temple. It's not to take away from the Bearcats' defense, but let's
call a spade here, right? Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Now, so to me, I'm thinking KJ is not EJ, or at least he shouldn't be. And so with these types of, defensive situations, I think if he improves like we're thinking that he will, then we shouldn't be seeing that, I guess is my point.
And again, I can't stress this enough. While Eric makes the point that KJ will be challenged to hit some passes down the field, probably on third down or probably on a play action scenario, I will. 4-11 on third down isn't terrible. You would like to obviously see it be more against New Hampshire, no question. But at day's end, it's going to be those money balls that really decide what he's doing. And I will disagree with Elo on this. They don't care about wins; they want production, folks. If this team wins 8 or 9 games, it doesn't matter if KJ Jefferson throws 500 yards for the year. If they're in contention for a Big 12 championship,
we'll see. We'll find out against TCU in 2 weeks.
All right. Well, let me put it to Eric here, because I know Kyle. You have a different perspective on this, but Eric, I want to put this to you. What would you consider satisfactory from a KJ Jefferson point of view on Saturday?
Oh, I don't think this. I mean, just be efficient. To me, it's not even about the stats. Make the throws that are there, the simple throws. It's not like we're breaking down like he must hit this 50-yard vertical. Like there were some throws there that are wide open that you can give your playmakers an opportunity. That's it. And Kyle, you brought it up. I agree with you. He was definitely. It seemed like he was kind of aiming the throw and targeting the certain receiver. That's a bad habit. I don't know if he got that bad habit last year or not, because I didn't see that much of that in 21 and 22. But we saw at times, like I think the Ole Miss game last year, he was like that. And I don't know if it's just one of those things, but that's what it is. It's just more mechanical.
I think that's, and we'll leave it on this. I think that the real issue was, they talked all the time about the offensive line last year at Arkansas that he struggled with. When you're a quarterback, you're working with a bad offensive line, you're kind of waiting to get whacked sometimes. Yeah, and it did feel like he was waiting to feel or get hit at a time when, and to try and protect the ball, when nothing was there. So, that can be a difficult habit to break. But, again, that comes down to confidence in your receivers, confidence in getting the ball in the right place. And, he's a senior. He knows what he's got to do. He's not stupid.
I'll put 2 quick points of emphasis on this. There are 3 of those throws that you talk about that were complete misses that shouldn't have been ELO. If he's 10 for 14 instead of, by the way, if he's 10 for 14, he's breaking 200 yards, and they shouldn't be, but that's the number they're looking at is the 200-yard total. People would probably be fine with that, right? If he was 10 for 14 with 200, it's not prolific, but they would understand that this is a Gus Malzahn offense.
Or even if it's one of those things where, hey, look, he threw a great ball and the ball was dropped.
Right.
Sure. That's what it's not just the stats. It's again, how did it look? And it didn't look pretty. But I'm not. And for the record, I'm not bailing on him yet.
No, right. I
do have concerns of, and Jeff brings up a good point about the offensive line. He got hit a lot last year, and you wonder. And I brought this up, and I think it's a problem with some quarterbacks. At some point, are you a shot fighter? At some point when you get hit so much, this happened with David Carr in the NFL. When you get hit a lot, maybe at times that now all of a sudden some bad habits develop because of that, and you're not as confident as you should be or whatever. Who knows? But that is a factor if he got hit a lot last year, and you wonder again. One game, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I'll add this too. And again, not that I've played a lot of quarterback at a high level, but there were a few times where I've dabbled with it and studied the position. And I know the first time I came out to play just a silly little flag game for my team in a league, I was that straight arming that I'm talking about is what happened to me because I was overthinking it. Eventually, you're just like, hey, listen, I know what's open. I'm smart enough to do that, and I need to put the ball there. And when I asked KJ Jefferson Thursday night, hey, what was different with you on that throw? He didn't tell me about his psyche. He didn't tell me about his confidence. What he told me was, I saw this play. This happened. This was what was drawn up, and I delivered it here. It was interesting that in that moment when he was confident, he wasn't thinking about technique or this or that. He knew what the play was, and he stuck to that. And I think to your point, Elo, not seeing, I don't want to call it seeing ghosts because I don't think he's there like Zach Wilson was, but
no, too early for that.
Exactly. And I think that moment of him answering with football logistics rather than, well, you see what I was feeling was, that is kind of evidence in that moment he had that confidence.
Well, you mentioned that, Kyle. I think back to our guy, JJ.
Sure.
Who said, I'll never forget. Because I tell believe it or not, I tell my students this. I'm like, when you're in crisis, he said, you don't rise to the level of your talent. You sink to the level of your training. And I think that's exactly what KJ did. So,
but again, it's worth mentioning. There was a lot of expectations. He's been compared to Cam Newton. There's probably some internal pressure in there as well. And these athletes,
I would have been nervous too, man.
And these college athletes, I think the NIL, this is something that's going to, I think in college athletics, there's going to be more pressure now because, hey, you're getting NIL money, you got revenue coming up in the foreseeable future. How do these guys handle all that? These aren't, I mean, that's going to be very interesting. But I will say this. My predictions have not changed based on this game or the performance. I think they're an 8-win team. Where are you guys at right now? Where are you guys at here, Kyle? I gave you an extra few days. Win-loss. Where are
we? I have told you that I am reserving the answer to that at the end of the preseason, as you like to call it.
I mean, with the Big 12, though, that preseason may not be till November. Right? Some of those teams are looking, holy mackerel.
I mean, what I'm answering with is I'm going to see Sam Houston before I put anything on it, because how KJ comes out will actually.
I will say for those degenerates out there, the number according to ESPN is 21 this week for the Sam Houston game. So
a 21-point spread. Interesting.
21 points, yeah. It's actually down from 24.
It's a little low.
I don't know. Do you feel disrespected if you're UCF? I don't
know. Well, kickoff is at 6:30, by the way. It'll be on ESPN Plus 6:30 on Saturday. Elo, do we got a crew for that game yet?
I'm sure they do. We have no idea who they are.
They haven't said it yet? Come on, man. I know it won't be Rini. He told me he's not going to be here for that one. But but they did. He and Rob Lee. I was going back and watching. They did a great job.
I agree.
Once again, and Rini went up to. He told me he went up to Georgia Southern on Saturday, which, by the way, if some of the old school UCF fans remember, we used to play Georgia Southern back in the day. Let me tell you something. There's a reason they call that place the prettiest little stadium in America.
I've only ever seen them in the Cure Bowl, Jeff. I can't speak to that.
Let me tell you, that's a pretty little football stadium they got up there in Statesboro. I'm not going to lie. Anyway, I'm shouting out to my old Georgia folks, from way back in the day. So, all right, let's take a break. When we get back, we got lots to catch up on. Soccer, volleyball got underway. Great weekend for volleyball. Some injury news for men's soccer that we're a little bit worried about, and also women's soccer with a huge victory over the weekend. We'll talk about that more when we get back. This is Night Shift. For all the latest news and analysis from every UCF sport, visit blackandgoldbanneret.com, your home for the UCF Knights on SB Nation. We bring you all the latest news and in-depth analysis from across Knight Nation, from football and hoops to golf and tennis. If you want to stay on top of all things UCF, visit blackandgoldbanneret.com, powered by SB Nation. We're back here on Night Shift. Jeff, Kyle, Eric, and Bryson, and let's talk a little football. And we'll start with the women. UCF women's soccer had a huge game. It was actually okay. They did the senior night thing, and even though it was September 1st, but they had number 24/number 8 Georgia in town, and they beat them 2-0. And a huge win, especially coming off the 2-2 tie with Florida and the 1-1 tie with Utah Valley, to play a ranked team, one of the best teams in the country, and beat them 2-0 on your home at home in a big moment. Just a tremendous boost for UCF. Ella Holleran got the scoring going late in the first half, and then Chloe Netzel once again. The woman just can't be stopped right now. She's, we're getting to the point now where, and Eric, I want to go to you first on this. That, I mean, this is like Kristen Scott had a Chloe Netzel level season, I think, a couple years ago, right? I mean, this
might be better though. I mean, this is better. Like, she's on a tear, and she's been an explosive offensive player, leads the nation in goal scoring. I don't remember a UCF soccer player coming off to that. I mean, this is more Cal Jennings, really, 2019 level we're seeing here. And look, this was a monster win. This, I would argue, for all as far as all the women's sports at UCF since they've started the Big 12, this might be the biggest marquee win that any women's sport has had since the Big 12. UCF joined the Big 12. Yeah. I know this is a non-conference game, but Georgia's uber talented. This is a team that's going to have players on that roster that are going to be playing professionally and internationally moving forward. They're an SEC title contender. They can make a run to the College Cup. This was a test for this UCF team, and they passed. And I give Coach Sahidak credit from a scheduling standpoint. She had a whole week to prepare for Georgia, while Georgia played in Tallahassee Thursday night against number 1 ranked Florida State. So I think UCF had fresher legs.
Mm-hmm.
I think UCF adjusted better to the weather delay than Georgia did. And they took it to them. I thought they did a good job controlling the ball. And Bryson, we wondered who would be the goalkeeper at UCF. And I think they got their goalkeeper on Sunday night because the young freshman there, she was pretty spectacular.
Sammy Lipcon, yeah.
4 saves in a big spot against a talented Georgia team.
Oh, absolutely. Sammy was telling me after the match, which you can watch on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel. Thank you. That she was feeling a lot more confident in goal. She even admitted that she thinks she played scared against Florida, which was a 2-2 draw. And to see some of the plays that she ended up making in this second half, there was this one time where she had a one-on-one, and she handled it, as I would argue, as best as a true freshman could have in that situation. I will admit there was one I would argue kind of lucky bounce off the crossbar that ended up not going into the goal, but also Lipkin tipped it to where it hit the crossbar in the first place. So a true freshman goalkeepers we've seen before, but I think that I'm starting to see her really get comfortable with it. And I think it's going to be very interesting once Genesis Perez-Watson comes back to town, because Sammy's really making her kind of Tom Brady kind of.
Well, 306. She's played every minute. She's given up 1 goal against, and she's got 17 saves, 81% so far. Can't ask for anything more than that. Now the question is,
credit guys, really quick too. By the way, there's a short out there on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel telling them all that she had the goods in the opening game there too. She's just building on that. Give credit to Bryson Turner for soothsayer Bryson Turner, right?
Well, 2 questions. First thing, Georgia was 24th in the country. Elo, you think we're going to be ranked?
Yes, I think there's a good chance. UCF women's soccer, when it comes to UCF sports, usually gets the benefit of the doubt in rankings, probably more so than other sports. So I think they'll get definitely votes. It's hard to predict these polls at some of these stuff, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're ranked. I think they warrant. They're undefeated. They get a quality win against Georgia. But more importantly, that is a resume non-conference win that they didn't have a year ago.
Yeah.
And Bryson remembers, and Bryson and I watched the match at Georgia last year.
The one thing that they were lacking was a signature win.
Correct. And if last year, Bryson and I were watching the match at Georgia when they blew the lead, and that cost them. If they hold on and win that match, they're probably in the NCAA tournament instead of just being the first 4 out. So that's why that's a significant win, especially with Georgia having all the experience advantage over UCF. So I think it's a confidence booster for this group moving forward. I think aren't they starting Big 12 play already?
No, we got South. That was my next question. We got South Florida next.
Okay.
So
rivalry game there.
Rivalry game there. Letdown. Got to be careful of that, right?
Well, you're going to Tampa. You're going to Tampa now. Their longtime head coach left to coach a professional league team. Her husband took over, so you're not going to. It's pretty much a similar. What you're going to see from USF is similar to what you've seen all these years from Coach Denise to her husband now, who was on the assistant on the staff last year. So look, that's going to be a test. USF usually has good athletes, and so you're right. It'll be interesting how. That's a good question. That's a good point. How does this team handle prosperity going on the road to Tampa and against a rival like USF? It's a valid question.
Thursday night, 7 p.m. at Corbett Soccer Stadium in Tampa. And do we know when the RPI comes out? Because I looked on the site; they don't have it. They don't have an RPI up yet. They used to start it up right away, but on NCAA.com they don't have an updated
probably
RPI
October.
yet.
Yeah, probably. October. We were just what is it? First, second day? Something. Yeah, October probably. Yeah, the end of the month maybe at worst.
Let's get it together, NCAA. Come on, let's go. All right.
That's a tall ask.
Yeah, I know, right? Men's soccer, on the other hand, Elo, you called this game for UCF, number 19 against number 23 Seattle, 1-1 draw. Or excuse me, no, that was on Sunday. Saturday, they played what was a ranked team, Wake Forest coming in. UCF drew them 1-1. I beg your pardon. So UCF right now 21st in the country. But that's not the story, and you and Bryson are following this very tightly on blackandgoldbanneret.com, Eric Lopez. Juan V. Munoz is out with an injury. He said on social media 6 to 8 weeks. And so coming in for him, excuse me, on and doing a fine job in his stead was young Shane Wright. One goal given up, 2 saves, kept UCF in the game. Eric, I want to get your perspective from the booth, and then Bryson. Pretty good debut against a soccer power in Wake that, they're not ranked as high as they usually are, but that doesn't mean they're any less talented. So big dub there for Shane Wright, right?
Yeah, I mean, don't be fooled by that. Wake will be ranked at before. No, they've had some nagging injuries themselves. I think they're trying to figure themselves out. I thought the polls overreacted to them losing to VCU opening night. Wake Forest. I mean, VCU is going to win the A-10. So, but look, the Juan V. Munoz that broke Friday. It was awkward because I had a conference call with Coach Calabrese and it came up, and I'm like, wow, it's really open about this. And then I was texting, and then I realized, oh wait. Juan V. Munoz just announced it as this conference call started on his Instagram. So, okay, that explains that. So that's a big blow. So you got Shane Wright, kid from Orlando, first Orlando goalkeeper I could think of for UCF in forever that has started. Defensively only had a couple of saves. Defense really did a good job on him. But the other issue, and I wrote about this on the men's bracket and the recap, is right now, UCF's biggest opponent is not the opponent, the actual teams they're playing. It's the injury bug.
Yep.
Because late in the first half, on a corner kick opportunity, Luca Dorado goes up in the air and then holds up his leg and, falls down and leaves the match, doesn't come back. As we do this, we don't have any official word on Luca Dorado. We probably won't until maybe over the weekend. Hopefully it's for the best and nothing too serious, but we don't know. So he didn't play the rest of the match. So UCF, that's 2 significant players with Juan V. Munoz, a veteran goalkeeper, and you have
your top striker.
Top striker was a top 6 scorer in the history of the program. So not ideal. So they needed other guys to step up. They had this young kid. They transferred Funakoshi, kid out of Japan, scored the goal for UCF.
Scott was pretty high on him too coming into the year.
He was. Emmanuel Bond had a really good match. So they do have other guys. Javier, Lopez are high on, midfielder from Spain. They've gotten 5 goals this year from 5 different players. So that's a good sign. And they drew the Wake thing. If you want to nitpick, they had a lead for the second straight match. Under 20 minutes to go in the match, give up a goal. This one's kind of fluky type of deal. It was a deflection, and it went over Wright's head in the net. But so you get the draw. It's a good result. But the bigger concern, obviously, is the injury, and particularly now what happens to Luca Dorado. And, you got a young goalie now in Shane Wright you got to depend on.
Well, Bryson, that takes me over to you now because their next game is against UC Irvine. And that's at home. It's space game, by the way, on this Friday. So what's the outlook right now on, regarding UC Irvine, a team that we played before? I think we played them out in Irvine. I forget if it was last year or the year before. And Scott likes playing, Coach Calabrese likes playing some of these teams from out west in California. They're a different style of play. They give you a little bit of a preview of what you're going to see when you get to the postseason. What are we looking at right here in terms of, what we're going to see from UC Irvine in particular?
Well, this is a team that looks to be the class of the Big West. They were the Big West tournament champion last year. They're projected to win the Big West again this year. So this is sort of like how we're, the same situation we're kind of dealing with Mercer and Seattle U, where we're dealing with a team that is the class of their conference. As far as their previous games, they are coming off of a game against new D1 edition Mercyhurst. They beat them 3-1, but they're a new D1 team. Before that, they drew Vermont, who was receiving votes 1-1. And then they went to Corvallis to play number 4 Oregon State to begin their season and lost it 2-1. So they did get a goal on them.
Yeah.
So I would not count out UC Irvine in this situation, but I think I would treat them maybe similar as I would Seattle U, where they're a team that can really punch above their weight, especially with a young goalkeeper, though. I think that's going to be an interesting team because I think that could be one of those kind of trap type of teams that could take advantage of a young goalkeeper and force them to make a mistake that a more experienced goalkeeper might not make.
Yeah, don't sleep on a team like UC Irvine in particular here, because conference play is right around the corner. Both soccer teams right now are in a situation where they're playing their last non-conference game before conference play starts. Remember, FIU, UCF plays them on Wednesday, September the 11th, down in FIU. To start. Is that's the first conference play? No, that's not.
No,
FIU's in the American.
FIU's in the American. Right, I forgot about that.
And then South Florida after that.
Yeah, so 2 teams from the American coming up after that, and then you're into Sun Belt play with James Madison on Saturday, September 21st. Sorry about that, man. I got confused on FIU. How about that? All right, but and nonetheless, good position to be in. Yes, you get the point. Like Eric was saying, you get the result. Now, what do you do with that against UC Irvine? It's a space game, 7 p.m. on Friday, September 6th. Kyle Nash's favorite UCF holiday, space games.
Space games are great, so long as we keep looking like the school that we are.
That's the whole point of having this. Anyway,
what? North Carolina?
that takes us over.
Tuesday, by the way, the polls will be updated. So depending on when you listen to this, so we might find out if both men and women are still in the top 25 or not. So whatever, but that's kind of, if you're looking for polls.
I think they both should be ranked. I think it'll be likely the women. I think the men will be probably knocking on the door, though, right, Eric?
I think both will be in the 20s.
Okay.
I mean, that's a good win against Georgia. I mean, but we'll see. Who knows? You never know with these pollsters.
Right. Well, we're making our campaign right now. All right, so that takes us over to volleyball. Speaking of North Carolina, Kyle Nash, Jenny Maurer, the UCF volleyball team, started their season on the road. They were in Blacksburg, Virginia on Saturday to play Virginia Tech, and then they went down to Charlotte, North Carolina to play Charlotte on Sunday. So back-to-back, and they get back-to-back dubs on the road. That's, and listen, Virginia Tech didn't have the best year in the ACC, but they changed over their coach, but that's still a tough place to win. They had it in Castle Coliseum, so it was a pretty good crowd for Virginia Tech volleyball. UCF got off to a good start, won the first 2, dropped the next 2, but then went to the 5th. It was tight in the 5th, and they pull out the 15-13 dub in the 5th to get the victory. And then they go to Charlotte, having gotten their feet underneath them, and sweep the Charlotte 49ers. So Bryson, I was watching both those matches, but I want to get your perspective here. The VT match I thought was actually pretty important, because it was a ACC opponent, high pressure situation, considering that they got off to a good start and then they ganked up the next 2 sets, collected themselves. There was some real adversity on the road, but they figured out a way to do it. Ava Armour had 16. She's off to a heck of a start right now for UCF between the 2 matches. But I want to get your perspective on that, because she had 13 against Charlotte, and then right now I think that they really needed that I think it's going to really benefit them going forward, the way they won that Virginia Tech match. No?
Oh, yes. I think it is certainly important to have that, but I worry a little bit, because we saw this in Virginia Tech, and we kind of saw this in Charlotte too, where UCF got off to an extremely hot start, like absolutely, put them away
blazing
early on in the game, but then you let them back. I mean, even Charlotte was able to come back and make the second set a pretty close one. So
that was, even though, I mean, yeah, but you still handled them 25-10 in the first, and then you took care of them in the third, though, right?
No, yeah, you did take care of them in the third. But what I'm saying is that the difference is there's a difference between Virginia Tech and Charlotte, though. With Charlotte, you were better able to put them away because they're not Virginia Tech. But the way I'm looking at it is that you still let both of your opponents back in after thoroughly dealing with them early. So. And especially with Charlotte, by the way, she also worked in some new players. I actually was very impressed by how deep this UCF team was at the outside hitter position, because Emily Wilson actually ended up not playing as big of a role as I thought she would be at this point. I don't know if she was.
Yeah, against Virginia Tech, they kind of took her out of the match.
Oh, yeah. So to see Ava Armour, we knew Ava Armour was going to be good, but how about Britt Carlson? She's not She hadn't gotten as many kills as Ava, obviously, but she had a much better attack percentage than her. Like, she was doing very well at choosing her shot. And then also Heidi Bondi ended up getting some action as well. We hadn't seen her in a little bit. She got a little bit of action last year, but not a ton. So it's good.
She was fighting off some injuries last year, Heidi was, but man, she really did. She stepped it up. It was nice to see that, her not only playing well, but she was taking really good advantage of the opportunities that she did get. Like, they were setting her in key spots that she was getting it done. So it's good. It's good to see her, back in the swing of things, so to speak.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Abby Shomers was doing a really great job. She was 10 of 13 on her attacks. Like, her 13 attacks led to 10 kills. I actually think that Abby Shomers could be a secret offensive weapon for this UCF squad, because I always love it when volleyball players are able to kind of sneak a point in on the second ball. And I think Abby could be a very good player to utilize in that situation. One other stat I would like to point out from the Virginia Tech game that might give me a little bit of pause is that Virginia Tech actually won the blocks battle in that matchup by a good bit. Virginia Tech got 9.5 and UCF got 4. What UCF is going to need to do when they get into the Big 12, and Jenny Maurer talked about this when addressing Big 12 opponents, is that they need to be big. And she definitely addressed that. She's getting Alexia Kuhl, Sasha Cohen did a really good job.
Yes, Sasha Cohen's been a find, man. She's been good.
Oh yeah, I quite like what I saw from Sasha Cohen. And this is only the first match, so maybe I don't want to put too much stock into it here. But I just looking at seeing Virginia Tech winning the blocks battle by as much as they are, like, you don't want to do that going forward, especially when a big emphasis on what you're trying to do is get bigger to stand up to the size that these Big 12 teams are going to have, because this is an ACC team that did this.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's
Elo,
just
what were your thoughts on it? Because I was particularly impressed with what UCF also got from Britt Carlson too. But the block thing in the Virginia Tech match was a real concern.
Well, look, it's the first match. I mean, Virginia Tech is probably the worst team in the ACC. Charlotte's picked near the bottom of the American. Big news, by the way. The American, bringing back the American Conference Volleyball Tournament this year. Big news there. Holding it in Wichita.
Someone call Todd Dagenet right now.
How about that? Wichita. I think 8 teams make it in. I mean, I had a buddy of mine. She texted me about it. I'm like, hey, I got the gig to call the American Volleyball. I'm like, wait, they're bringing it back? I'm like, okay. So, so we don't know. I think it's too early to tell because I think the competition is going to get a lot better. They're going to go to Stetson. They should win that. They're going to play Wilmington in as well in DeLand. They should win that. They play FAU in Tallahassee. They should win that. They play Florida State on the road on Sunday, September 15th.
Next big test.
That's when I think we'll learn a lot about this team. And, they try to find some answers. I feel like they're young. I think the big picture for volleyball is who grows into their roles. Mm-hmm. Like an Ava Armour, does she take a next step? And I think, to me, become their focal point offensively. I think she
took a big step toward it this weekend, man, the way she's been playing.
So there's that.
She had 43 swings against Virginia Tech too, so they were going for her.
So yeah, I think it's just growing into their roles, and we'll see what happens. I mean, but it was a good to get the good start on the road. Congrats to Jenny, who got her 100th win and all the different institutions she's coached at.
That's right. Shout out to Jenny. Between Bradley and UCF now, 100 wins in her career. So, and here's to 100 more.
Yeah, so it's a wait and see. Remember last year, everybody got caught up in they got off to that 8-0 start in the Big 12, and people were like, oh, this is easy, no problem, and then they got hit in the wall. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think we got to see more of this team kind of together and see how they gel and see how they handle as the competition level goes up.
All right. Hey. Can't beat starting 2-0, I'll tell you that, though. And, like you said, as the competition starts to ramp up with Stetson on Thursday in DeLand at the Edmunds Center, and then UNC Wilmington on Saturday, like Eric was saying. And supposedly we'll be able to watch those matches, too, I think. On
just Stetson, just the Stetson.
Just the Stetson one? Because there's a watch link for UNCW as well.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
I wouldn't hold my breath.
We'll see. It might be
maybe they'll put a video and no broadcast.
It might be a cell phone on a tripod it's like somewhere near the top of the Edmonds Center, which is what we might be looking at here. So, but if you get to 4-0, beats the alternative for sure. All right. That will just about do it here for us, Kyle. We've got like we said, we're gonna have a busy weekend once again with the Sam Houston game. You will be you'll be there along with I believe Bryson. You'll be there too as well. Is that right? All right, Night Shift Live following Sam Houston State. Anything else we should know about what's going on here? What did I miss? Anything? I don't think so.
Well, we did just today. We're recording this on the evening of Labor Day. Chase Haygood marked to be his first tournament for the men's golf team by winning a share of the individual title. He tied with another guy. So great job to open the season for men's golf. And you can read more about what the team did there on Nightcap, which can be found on blackandgoldbanneret.com. Along with, of course, I recapped the volleyball weekend myself as well on there. Talked about the cross-country team, a couple of UCF alums doing some great stuff. All that stuff you can get on Nightcap.
By the way, I mean, I don't know if we've talked about it on this pod, but if you haven't checked it out yet, the volleyball preview for the Night Shift podcast, make sure you get a look at that as well if you're into that.
Absolutely.
All right. Because we got the best holiday of the year this weekend, folks. Week 1, the National Football League. Let's go. All right. Kyle, any UCF guys going to make any contributions in the NFL? Any contributions?
Who's going to be our postseason UCF NFL alum of the year this year, Kyle?
I mean, listen, for one there, Eric Lopez, I'm sure you're going to see Gabe Davis setting blocks to the outside to that reduced Miami Dolphins defense as they get some runs with Travis Etienne. So, Gabe Davis will do that. He'll get some catches as well as he's replacing Zay Jones on the
I got bad news for Gabe Davis. He's going to be the number 3 receiver on that. Number 4 option, actually. You got Kirk, you got Ingram, and the kid from LSU. They drafted is going to be
Brian Thomas Jr.,
superstar. Yeah.
PTJ. Don't worry, we're going to talk about him a lot on the Duval Dive here on Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. So make sure you check that out, Duval Dive YouTube channel and on the Duval Dive podcast, by the way.
All right. Well, so we got that coming up, and of course we'll have the Night Shift Live on Saturday, and of course don't forget Bryson pulling in the nightcap for us as well. Yeah, like I said, off we go to Sam Houston. I want to see him. I can't believe that we're coming in here. We're like, man, we need to see this team play better after they beat somebody by 54 points and didn't allow a touchdown. But here we are. But you know what?
We're that desperate to hear you call a safety again over the PA there, Jeff. That's what it is.
That was cool. I don't normally get the chance to call safeties. The one time I think the one time I called a safety, we actually thought it was a scoop and score for a touchdown. And then they went back and reviewed it and it was a safety, but I never got a chance to call a straight safety, but I did. First time for everything. So, all right.
They did a great job on that and on that the whole call, not just the safety pitch.
Well, they kept me busy, didn't they? on Thursday night. So here's hoping that they keep me busy on Saturday night as well, keeping us all busy. We will see you on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel for Night Shift Live. We will also see you on all of our socials, including Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret, UCF Banneret _SBN on X. And, of course, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret and Threads, Black and Gold Banneret. And also we've got Instagram. By the way, shout out to Brenna Johnson, who's got some good photos up there for us as well on our Instagram as well. Derek Warden was out at the football game. We saw some really good stuff. And Brenna's been killing it for soccer and so far. I can't wait to see what she gets for volleyball. Brenna's so funny. Like she's the first time she did volleyball, she's like, I don't know if these are good, man. And then I see the photos, and they're like Pulitzer Prize work. It's like
she does that every time,
all the time. Like Brenna she sets the expectation. Brenna, I have high expectations, and you always exceed them. And
I love it.
So I don't know what else to say. You're doing, tremendous guys. Check out the Instagram feed. It's just awesome, the stuff that we're seeing. All right, that'll do it for us here on the Night Shift podcast. For Eric Lopez, Bryson Turner, and the student of the game, Kyle Nash, I'm Jeff Sharon. Have a great week, Enjoy this upcoming week, and we will see you for Sam Houston on Saturday. Go Knights, charge on.